Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review, quick track review of the new Death Grips single, Inanimate Sensation. Death Grips, West Coast experimental hip-hop trio, have done numerous reviews on these guys thus far. I'll drop a few reviews down in the description box of records like The Money Store. Now, they have a new record out on the way. It's titled Jenny Death. It's part of a two-part record that wholly is going to be titled The Powers That Be. They dropped the first half of this double album earlier this year, gave that a review, but I didn't, score it or anything like that because I feel like it's a part of a larger whole, and I think I want to hear both of these albums together before I make my final decision. But I did like what Death Grips had brought to the table so far on that record. I thought that record had some interesting tracks on it. I thought it had some of their best songs on it. I loved how a lot of the tracks sort of segued into one another. It felt like one long song with multiple phases to it. And Bjork gave them some vocals to sample throughout this project, which they kind of use like an instrument throughout the album. And it had some pretty strange and very intriguing results. Intriguing. Good word to use with Death Grips music. And good word to use with this new track. Okay, so now with this next record, Jenny Death, on the way, and the band saying this is going to be their last record because they're broken up, but who knows if that's really the case. Personally, I wouldn't be all that surprised if Death Grips continued to be a band after this record, because it always seems like they're totally willing to just violently smash our expectations whenever they tell us one thing, they do another. It's just this constant game of bait and switch. But the band is usually pretty consistent and very happy to deliver when it comes to music and material. So, I mean, I think we're going to get this record. A lot of people seem to be doubting it, but I think we're going to get Jenny Death. I think we're going to get Jenny Death soon. And this first single from it, for me, is one of the biggest what the fuck moments of... And not because I don't like it, but it's easily one of the strangest tracks in the Death Grips canon so far, especially with how the song starts. This track starts, unlike any track I've heard this year, unlike many songs I've ever heard, really. I mean, it begins with this synthesizer revving up intensely against this rumbling drum beat, what feels like live drums. It's nice to hear, sort of just some booming live drums coming back into the fold on a new Death Grip song, because many of the drums appearing on their latest LPs have been sort of synthetic, electronic in flavor. And now to hear some just booming live drums, it kind of feels like I'm hearing a combination of ex-military coming together with what the band did on their last full-length LP. So with these synthesizers revving up, you're getting all these vocals multi-tracked and layered going... The song is aggressive, it's overwhelming, and the track is 6 minutes long. It features 4 different verses, totally killer chorus, blown out, bass! And the 4 verses all have different flavors. The first one kind of has MC Rye doing his usual straightforward, screamed, shouted delivery and flow. The next verse is kind of subdued, whispered, I guess by MC Rye's standards, whispered. And then on the third verse, we're getting his voice pitched down like an octave, so it's really deep, like you've heard on a lot of modern rap tracks these days that are influenced by Southern hip-hop and Chopped and Screwed. This is the one part in the song I don't really care for all that much because it makes it hard to read into Rye's lyrics, and it just seems like a little bit much, like it just goes on too long. But then the track finishes off with more screamed and shouted verses. And lyrically, there's a lot going on with this track. In the third verse, it seems like we're dealing with materialism here. There's a verse where we're getting a lot of references to rock musicians or names in popular music, like there's an AC/DC reference, a Jimi Hendrix reference, Axl Rose, Guns N' Roses reference, a Rick James reference. Some of these references dealing with violence toward these figures, almost as if Death Grips hates this era of music or something, or they see some kind of machoism in it that's kind of a turn-off. Or maybe that's how they kind of see culture treating these figures or just this era of music or just culture in general, there's a lot of references toward information overload and culture overload in Death Grip's music, with them talking about things like Macs and iPods on this track. For a lot of people, these things are kind of our windows to the world. And in this song, Inanimate Sensation, I think they're making kind of a statement talking about how we get sensations from some of the things that Ride is referencing on this track. But sort of in this information overload age, our experiences are kind of static. They're through screens, they are fake, they're inanimate, they're counterfeit in a way. Or, at least that's how I'm reading into it. I'm really loving this track, and I'm excited for Jenny Death. I think with this song being as awesome as it is, when this record comes out and pairs together with the first half of the Powers That Be, I'm going to hear a great double album. But what do you think of this track? Let me know. I really want to transition. Please do give this single a listen. And again, if you haven't caught any of those earlier Death Grips reviews I've done, again, down there in the description box or right here in this end slate, check them out over there. And you're the best. Anthony Fantano, Death Grips, Inanimate Sensation.